Hey folks, this video is about physical and chemical changes. First up is physical changes. These are any kind of change that we have that the substance that we start with is the same as the substance we end with. So anytime it changes from a solid to a liquid, any kind of phase change, or if you're just changing the size of something, or if you're dissolving something in water. It's really good to use physical changes for separating mixtures. So if you dissolve something and then maybe evaporate it, maybe you dissolve the sugar in water, then you evaporate the water out, then you'll be left with sugar on the bottom, so you can separate that back out. So anytime that you end up with the same thing that you started with, for an example, if you had a large piece of wood and you cut it in half, both of those pieces are still made out of wood, so it didn't change what you have, it just changed the size of what you have. Chemical changes, on the other hand, is any type of chemical reaction you could have, like burning or rusting or when you cook an egg. This involves a different substance that you end up with than what you started with. So this is good for splitting up molecules into their separate elements. You can break those chemical bonds and you end up with, that can be rearranged and you end up with something new. So for example, you took that piece of wood that you just cut in half through a physical change and you throw it in a campfire. When it's done burning, you're no longer left with a piece of wood, you're left with a pile of ashes. So you ended up with something new, different than what you started with. So that would be an example of a chemical change. There are 5 major indicators of a chemical change. The first one is anytime there's an odor or smoke or fire that's produced. So like a rotting apple, if it smells real bad, you can probably guess that it's going through a decomposition reaction because it's rotting. Anytime we have bubbles or the reaction is fizzing, you mix 2 liquids together and it starts bubbling, it's probably a chemical change. Anytime the temperature changes, so you mix the 2 liquids together or 2 things together, substances together, and it gets hotter or colder, and you're not really expecting that to happen, and then that's probably a chemical change. If there's an unexpected color change, or maybe if something's rusting, that would be considered a chemical change. And anytime you have you mix 2 substances together and you get a whole new solid, a precipitate is what we call it, it gets formed. So like if you put 2 liquids together and you ended up with some chunky solids on the bottom of the 2 clear liquids you just put together, that's a little odd, but you could imagine that that's a chemical change. For your notebooks, the first step would be to cut out this physical chemical change definition. So cut it out on the solid lines, fold it on the dotted lines, and glue this little strip here to your notebook. And then underneath that, write your definitions for physical and chemical changes. For the evidence of a chemical change, you'll want to cut this out, again on the solid lines. You'll glue the first test tube and the title into the bottom of your notebook, and then fold along the dotted lines accordion style so you can smush it all in your book. And this one's the easiest one. Just these are the physical and chemical change cards. Just cut along the solid lines, and you should have 6 cards when you're done. And we're going to put those cards somewhere, so let's make some pockets. Again, cut along the solid lines. Okay. You should have 2 pieces that look like this, and then you'll fold these tiny tabs on the sides in and flip your piece over, and it should look like that. And then fold along the dotted line there, folding that over, and you'll have this will be your whole back side, and this will be what your front side looks like. Then you just put a bunch of glue on this back side and put it in your notebook. And then you can sort your example cards from the previous slide into the 2 pockets in your notebook, and you should be good to go. This is what it should look like when you are all finished.